Hey there, and welcome to the Kevin Strong Show. And in this video, we're going to talk about how home prices are down and some of the home purchase sales haven't been this bad since 1995. But before we get into that article, we're going to talk about cities who are experiencing a housing shortage. I'm going to show you a map of that. And then we're going to look at some information where the past 20 months, where month-to-month price declines have gone down for the last 20 months. We're going to look at those cities that hit that bucket. And also, we're going to look at those cities that had a peak housing price since 2022 and that have come down the most to 2024. And like I said earlier, finally, we are going to have an article talking about how home prices are going down. Yes, I decided to freshen it up a little bit, give you a different look. It's been a while since I've had something white on the top of my head. I've been going through withdrawal, so it was time. So if you're laughing right now, you know I'm going to ask. Please hit the like button, consider subscribing. Without further ado, the first thing we're going to do is look at this map that's going to talk about some of the cities that are experiencing the most housing shortage in America. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this. This is according to Zillow. America's housing deficit rose to 4.5 million in 2022, a 200,000 increase from 2021. The figure is 4.3. So all of you guys who have been following the channel know that my backyard is Seattle, Washington, and they have made this list. Seattle's a very interesting housing market because some of the year-over-year home prices and medium sales prices and things of that nature are above the 2023 levels. I do think we might experience somewhat of a pullback in this market in 2025, but there's still a great demand for housing in Seattle, as indicated in this map, but there's also great demand for people who want to live in this state. So if the housing market in aggregate experiences any type of significant pullback and Seattle, the greater metro Seattle area is affected by that, it could be a really good buying opportunity because I see the housing Seattle market in aggregate in the long run to be very favorable. That was not my take 2 years ago, so I have adjusted my opinion on it. Just south of there is Portland, Oregon. Over here near the Midwest is Minneapolis, Minnesota. Far East is Boston. And obviously, this is a collection of a bunch of cities in California: Sacramento, San Francisco, San Jose, California, Los Angeles, and San Diego. Keep San Diego in mind because it's going to hit a couple ominous top lists as we go farther in this video. And Austin, Texas. So ironically, everyone's been hearing about how home prices have come down significantly, how the housing bubble has burst in Austin and prices are coming down. But in concert with that, there's a housing shortage. So just very, very difficult to understand some of this information. The next thing we're going to talk about is these cities. 20 cities from a month-to-month price decline. So let me go ahead and pull that up and give you guys an example of what that looks like. Let's see here. Okay. So here we go. This is based on metropolitan statistical areas. So anytime you see something with an acronym MSA as it relates to, stats and things of that nature, this is what they're referring to. The top 20 month-to-month price declines. You can see here, San Francisco is number one, San Jose. I'll link both of these articles to the show notes at the bottom in the description portion of this channel, so you guys can look at this at your own leisure. But as you can see here, I'm not going to name all of these verbatim, but I think Seattle's up here. Yep, they're at number 17 right here. But clearly you can see what the top 5 is. Remember I just mentioned San Diego, which is really weird because now they're saying the top 20 cities for month-to-month price declines, but at the same time, San Diego is still a very robust housing market, and they have a housing shortage. So it's just really, really, really complicated. There's a lot of convoluted, counterproductive data points when it comes to housing, and it's just unclear. But we all know that the affordability crisis is hitting every aspect of society. Go down here a little bit further, and this is down from 2022. Now, this is the portion I was talking about from 2022, where some people felt in aggregate that was the peak in the housing market. These are the cities that have come down the most since 2022. And as you can see here, Seattle is definitely on this list at number 7. Once again, convoluted because they also made a list as one of the worst cities from a housing crisis standpoint, the need for more housing. But we all know need and affordability are totally two different things. So a lot of those cities in that map that I showed you at the beginning of the video clearly shows that these cities like in Seattle, all those cities in California, Minneapolis, Minnesota, all the way over to what was the one in the far east? Boston, Massachusetts, and in the south, Austin, Texas, showed up as a great need for housing. But the real connection between all of that is affordability. And I don't see that connection being filled anytime soon. Last but not least, we're going to go ahead and get into this article about home prices and why they're down so much. And let me go ahead and pull that up. Spoiler alert, I have decided not to do any more stock stuff. So home price demand destruction accelerates. Prices too high, buyer strike deepens, sales of existing homes head for the worst year since 1995. So think about that. A lot of us have a benchmark of 2008 during the great financial crisis. And a lot of times YouTubers, yours included, yours truly, will also reflect back to that time point to say how bad things can get. This is clearly saying purchase demand is so bad, it's even worse than it was during the great financial crisis. So right here is what they have is a purchase mortgage application index weekly. And as you can see down here, it's really, really bad. It just hasn't gotten any type of traction whatsoever. A little movement up and down, had a little bit of a spike for a second, and then they moved right back down. And obviously at the peak was around 2021 in terms of people who were applying for mortgages to purchase a home. So Fannie Mae economists, right, they say the remainder of 2024, we expect affordability to remain the primary constraint on housing activity for the foreseeable future. And we now think the full year of 2024 will produce the fewest existing home sales since 1995. So we're not alone. So this is what Fannie Mae economists are saying. So here's a graph bar illustration of that. Annual sales of existing single-family homes, condos, and co-ops in the million. As you can see here, all the way to the right, there's that blue bar that's a little bit about 4 million, roughly, just for an easy reference point. And if you follow that red solid line all the way over to the left, you go back to 1995. Even in 2008, we were a little bit better. So this is very ominous because what's ominous about this, ladies and gentlemen, is because the U.S. government has not come out and officially said that we're in a recession. We always find that out after the fact. Like they say, oh yeah, in October of 2023, that's when we were in a recession. I'm just saying hypothetically. But they're telling us right now, the economy's fine, everything is robust. Inflation is is under control, which we know none of that is true, especially when you go to the grocery store and just see what the average price of goods and services are. That is the narrative that's just false. It's DOA. It's dead on arrival. So this is very, very ominous because we're at the early stages of a recession, and some people think a quasi-depression, which is going to start no later than the first quarter of 2025. Here's another graph that talks about the average 30-year fixed rate mortgages. So as you can see here, they've got the blue line that represents 7% and the green line represents 6%. For those of you who used to follow me for the stock things, this is an idea of a classic example of what's called a head and shoulders pattern. If you can see my amounts here at the top, and I'm only applying this to the mortgage application. This would be the head portion. This would be the left shoulder, and this would be the right shoulder. And where this 7% blue line is, that's the neckline. So when a head and shoulders pattern forms and it goes below the neckline, how far does it go down? You take the top of the head all the way to the neck down, and then start from the neck down and start measuring down. As you can see here, just by eyeballing this visually, this distance here is probably the same from here to right there. And right on cue, what happened? It hit that point, and now it's starting to go back up a little bit. So this is also catching a lot of people off guard because the Fed cut by 50 basis points a few weeks ago, and the 30-year mortgage rate went down temporarily and is starting to creep back up. Some people think this could be the beginning stages of stagflation, which, for a quick definition, stagflation in essence is when you have inflation going up and the unemployment rate is going up. Most of us do not believe that job report to say that we added 254,000 jobs in September. I think those numbers are cooked because we're in the 11th hour of a presidential election. And I'm not casting shade on the current presidency. I think anyone in office, to the left or right, would probably be massaging and puffing up the numbers anyway to make them look as a little bit more rosier than what they actually are as they try to regain office. Refinance mortgage applications index. So as you can see here, this goes back just to March of 2022, and it swung all the way down, came up, and now it's going back down. This is an interesting graph. The red graph is the refinance mortgage application index, and the blue one, as you can see here, says the average 30-year mortgage rate. So typically what happens historically is that these two components, refinance mortgage applications and the 30-year mortgage rates, act in direct opposite of each other. So for an illustration of this, as you can see, refinancing went up here in 2019. See my mouse? As what? Rates went down, because as rates go down, people get incentivized to either refinance or do more mortgage activity because they want to take advantage of lower rates. Once again, you can see right here, as 30-year rates are starting to go up in 2022, when the Fed was raising rates, what happened? Refinance mortgage applications went down. And that's why I said earlier, they work in opposite of each other. And as you can see here, mortgage rates are slowly starting to tick up, as I've indicated previously, almost around 6.5. And what's happening? Oh, the refinance mortgage application index is starting to go down. Once again, this is confirmation that, with common sense in mind, as rates go up, people are less likely to refinance unless it's a last-ditch measure to either get out of debt or potentially try to save their home. So a little bit different video, a lot of graphs, a lot of good information. Like I said, I have decided to suspend the stock portion of this channel for various reasons. Those of you who follow me on Facebook know just did not get the traction. One gentleman who follows me called me, and he thought that all of those trailers I was sending were just tied to my simulation account. That's not true. All of those alerts that I was giving you guys on my Facebook timeline were actual trades that I was putting real dollars behind. So when I was telling you I was at a 75 to 80% rate, that was based on real dollars being put into the market and closing out certain positions at various profit levels. But the simulation stuff, yeah, that portion is fake. But the trade alerts were definitely trades that I was actively trading with real money. So I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Kevin Strong Show. For those of you who did enjoy the little brief 4 or 5 months explanation of stocks and me sharing my journey with you, I hope you did appreciate that. But as I said earlier, I've decided not to do that moving forward. If you have not subscribed, please consider doing so. If you enjoyed this content in this episode of the Kevin Strong Show, please leave me a comment and hit the like button. And don't forget to share, because I care. Keep your credit score up and your debt down. I'll see you guys in the next one, and have a great week.